So I wanted to give you guys a quick demo of how to break down an apple. This is going to be a pretty basic demo, just looking for proportions, how to use a sphere, how to use planes to interpret the apple, and just how to model it using lines. So how do you model something around with lines? A pretty quick demo on how to draw an apple. Okay, so I'm going to start out by placing the apple. I think I'm going to draw up here. And I'm first just thinking about the basic shape of an apple, sort of like a circle or a sphere. I'm going to immediately just start looking for a three-dimensional form. I'm going to use sort of a cylinder or an ellipse for the top of the apple. And I might make a quick little note about where that stem is. I'm probably going to draw that stem a little more obvious than it is. That's my basic layout of my apple, pretty simple. And now I'm going to start to just bring out the form a bit more. So I'm going to find the ground plane, maybe just sketch in a bit of a grid, just something for the ground. You could even sketch something here, bit of a shadow, which is going to be an ellipse. And now I'm going to start modeling. So I'm looking at, I chose Fiji apples for this. This is the really important part. You want to pay attention to, this is the top and this is the side. On a box, that's really obvious. So if you have something like this, right, it's really obvious that this is the top here and this is the side. But on an apple, that's less obvious. So when you're making those modeling lines, you want to use probably round lines, but you want to say that this is the top and then it's going to come down the side. So coming up over the top, hitting that corner and coming down. One way to do that is to break the apple up into straight lines. And we can do that on the side planes here. We can even go over our basic shape we did that's just a sphere, and start breaking those down into straights maybe. So modeling again, coming up from that center, from the core, coming out, coming down, rounding down into the form, and then hitting the ground. Coming up. I'm not thinking about the value right now. Like, I'm not thinking about the lightness or darkness of those lines. I'm just thinking about form. Coming out. Coming in. Again. Just modeling the basic form of that apple. I tried drawing this apple in apples at home from all kinds of positions. This is just one quick demo. I am going to push the stem here a bit more than it is in the actual apple. I'm going to push the stem to come out. I'm going to give that stem an ellipse on top just to give it a form. And I might even put sort of a little bit of a dent in my apple right here, just to let that silhouette of the stem stick out, make the whole shape of that apple just a bit clearer. I'm always trying to think about how people are going to read this when they see it. And, you know, if it's reading as pumpkin, sometimes it will read as pumpkin. Just push the shape a little bit, make it a little bit taller, change the proportions. You don't have to draw the apple exactly as you're seeing it. Okay, that's my quick little construction drawing. Now I'm going to grab my kneadable eraser and just roll it out. And I'm going to roll the eraser over the apple. And now I've got one of my favorite black colored pencils. This is a Faber-Castell. So now I am going to pay attention to the value of the apple. So this area is lighter than this area, that kind of thing, just the light and darkness. I might not actually copy that though. And I'm not really going to pay attention in this lesson to too much light and shadow, but I am just paying attention to how light and dark the apple is itself. Now I'm drawing this stem from imagination. I'm going to give it a nice dark outline and even though I'm saying I'm not going to do too much light and shadow, I might, just to make it look a little more 3D, put a shadow underneath that stem. Now inside here, I'm going to put a little bit of, I'm going to draw like ellipses just going around and around, just to sort of help me create that idea that there's a sort of a pit where the stem comes out from. And I am leaving a highlight, so I know I said I wasn't being thinking too much about light and shadow, but I'm just thinking about how there is this sort of strip where the form turns in the actual apple too. It gets darker in the center, and there's a bit of a highlight there. Now as I'm coming down the form, you'll see I'm kind of using straight lines, sort of straight lines. And it's a good idea to break up the size of those lines, create some variety. And most apples, they might sort of, again, you don't have to copy what you're seeing. You can look at a couple apples, you can design it. I'm going to leave sort of an area in here where the apple's a bit lighter. But every line I do, I'm thinking about the form underneath, so that these lines are describing form. I'm not thinking about shading or really even light and shadow so much at this stage. I'm thinking about modeling. Now, even here, I'm going to change. This is not how this apple actually looks at the bottom, but drawing is sort of a universal language. You have to, it's not like a photo where we will trust that it just looks right if it's a photo. A drawing, if it looks, a little bit different, people will assume you drew it wrong. People will assume it was, a bad drawing, but, you might have been drawing it accurately. People just won't trust you. So there's an aspect of drawing that you have to think about, making it sort of universally recognizable. What does an apple look like? What's going to read? What's going to read as an apple? So think about that while you're drawing. I do like to put in some sort of a background. I did put a little bit of a cast shadow on the ground there, but that was really just to help it feel like it's planted on the ground. When I'm thinking about doing my background, I'm thinking of using lines that are different directions than the apple. So I'm not using curved lines. Not to say you can't, but I just think that having a little bit of variety in your background is going to separate the apple out from the foreground and from the background. Okay, so continuing on here, I'm going to do using the side of my pencil, kind of get some soft shapes in the apple, soft tones. And I'm going to come back in and get some more detail as well. So just modeling, so those lines are coming around the form. I like to kind of create a chisel point with my pencil. It's easy to do this with a block of sandpaper, but you want to create sort of a chisel, and you can get some wider lines in the apple. Okay, so that's my really quick demo of my apple. Nothing too fancy. If you want to bring anything out of it, like kind of erase a little bit to bring out some highlights, you can do that. You can also sort of smudge a little bit. Okay, so that's my quick apple. For homework, please give it a shot. Try to draw on the apple from above, maybe put yourself below it, turn it on its side. Try as many angles as you can, and I hope it goes well.